president. Because with all of this and with all of that's happened, this is the coalition that's emerging. Disaffected Democrats, independents, Republicans, Constitution Party, Libertarian. Why do you think the liberal media, why do you think the left is apoplectic right now? We have never seen this kind of a coalition coming together, and that exceeds even the coalition after Jimmy Carter. Think of that. Think of that. This coalition is even bigger. It is the nuclear option coalition that is coming together. And that's why your event, based and grounded in unity, is not just ephemeral. I got it wrong. I'm not even going to try it. But it's all about unity going forward, because we've got brethren everywhere. That's not to say, like Bill said, that we agree on every issue. We absolutely don't. Here's my estimation. I think we have about a 70% level of agreement, and that's enough. That is enough to rock 'em, sock 'em, get us over the finish line in your state too, by taking back your state house, taking back your state senate. That is well within the realm of possibility. Well within the realm of possibility. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But this is where I see the unity of purpose and issues going forward into November. Number one, it's based on fiscal restraint, financial restraint. America's got to get her financial house in order. That is job one. And that's the first area that we're unified around, debt reduction and spending reduction. Number two, it is limited government and returning to our constitutional underpinnings. Huge undercurrent of agreement. That's number two. Number three, and I'm a former federal tax litigation attorney. This lights me up like a Christmas tree. It is, we are taxed enough already. That's our third area of agreement. Because taxes right now have reached an absolute tipping point. And I want to read just a couple of comments from you from Mike Frank of the Heritage Foundation. You can find this article on National Review Online. You can go to Heritage Foundation. But Mike Frank, who I dearly love, wrote this article called Tipping Points. A couple key things. Soon, foreigners will own a majority of our debt. Do you know in World War II, we financed our own debt? We issued bonds, remember word bonds? Foreigners did not finance our debt. We did. Today, very soon, over a majority of our debt will be owned by foreigners. We had zero foreign-owned debt in World War II. Stunning. Last year marked the single largest expansion in government debt ever. Federal debt alone accelerated past the 13 trillion mark. When President Obama took office, the debt was $5.8 trillion. It is $13 trillion today. Think of that. U.S. debt will rise from 2009's 53% of GDP to 90% by 2019. That's under the glowing rosy scenario of Barack Obama's numbers. Listen to Senator Judd Gregg. He said most economists will tell you an economy can handle between 30-40% debt as a percentage of GDP. But a nation's economy gets into trouble when the ratio gets up to 60% GDP. When it gets up to 80% GDP, Katie bar the door. Basically, an economy can't handle that very long. Well, listen to the International Monetary Fund. What do they have to say about America's GDP? Because remember, we're getting lectured now in Toronto by the G20, by all the socialists in Europe, and all of the Chi-Coms are telling us to get our financial house in order, while our president is saying spend, spend, spend. Well, the International Monetary Fund says general government gross debt in the United States for 2010 is 92.6%. Judd Gregg said 80%, you can't last very long. By 2014, so that's this year, in 4 years, our debt will pass 100% of GDP tipping point. It'll be, to be exact, 106.4%, and keep going. In other words, within 4 years, we're going to be looking a lot like Greece. We're going to be looking a lot like Greece. Greece is one of the smallest economies in the EU and has managed to cripple the EU. Now you're talking about the United States, the leading dog on the block. We're talking 4 years. That's why we have got a window of opportunity. Again, I recognize this isn't political, but all of our chips right now, brothers and sisters, are on November. We got a window of opportunity. Another tipping point that Mike Frank tells us about. Social Security now operates in the red. In the red. 6 years earlier than expected. Until recently, Social Security payroll taxes were the cash cow for Uncle Sam, subsidizing other federal programs to the tune of $100 billion plus annually. Now all those revenues, and then some, are needed just to cover each month's Social Security payments. So consider, this article goes on to tell us that if you look at history, look at the House of Bourbon in France, look at the Ming Dynasty, look at the fall of Rome, you look at civilization after civilization, decline happened rapidly. Great civilizations, but those civilizations declined and ended in less than a decade. Did you know that? Less than a decade. You just heard the numbers. Don't think the United States, because we have been blessed by an almighty God, cannot be subject to a decline. And I didn't come here to be Debbie Downer from Minnesota. That's why we're yellow. That's why we're yellow. I am not here to be Debbie Downer. But the point of all of this is what crippled the Chryslers, the GM, the public employee union pension funds of the world out there was that promising this Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme style pension and health benefit plans. That's what's got us into this problem. In other words, some of your politicians, I'm sure none of them in this room, decided they wanted some short-term glory. They wanted some short-term glory because they wanted to go out and put out mailers and put ads out and take credit for giving you free health care. They wanted to take credit for upping somebody's pension benefits because that felt good to a politician. They wanted to promise financial goodies today at the expense of generations yet unborn. So think about that. I'm a lawyer. There's lawyers here in this room. You are locking into a contract people completely incapable of giving consent to that contract. Because what was promised was the labor of people who aren't even born yet. No other generation has ever done that to any other generation in the United States. And I dare say if I asked you right now, do you live better than your parents and your grandparents? My hand goes up. I don't know about yours. But if I asked you, what do you think about your kids? What do you think about your grandkids? Are they going to live as well as you and your husband and wife live? I dare say very few of you would put your hand up. Do you realize this is the first time in American history that any audience would answer that way? Because we've always been forward-looking people. We have always thought about the next generation, as did Sam Adams, as did the Pilgrim Fathers, as did Dr. Joseph Warren. They thought about us. They thought about us. And are we eating the seed corn of the next generation? Almighty God, let it not be. And so C.S. Lewis wrote, and I think this describes so well where we're at right now, of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated.